And he's like, Elsa, she's like, Indy, I can get it, Indy, I can get it. He's like, Elsa, let it go, let it go. Here I stand in the light of day. Let the storm rage on. And fucking, does Elsa let it go? No. She's like, I can get it. He's like, you're slipping, honey, you're slipping. Hello, and thank you for checking out the video. I just want to let you know that I not only create content on my YouTube channel, Class in the Glass, but I'm also on Twitch, where I review movies, cartoons, and TV shows live, while also playing single-player games and multiplayer games. I also have a Patreon where subscribers have access to hundreds of video and audio commentaries for films and cartoons, as well as podcasts and videocasts. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. Enjoy the video.
Those people are trying to kill us.
I know, Dad!
It's a new experience for me.
Happens to me all the time.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
But, my friends, we got to go ahead and get to the fun stuff today. As I said before, we got a lot of reviews, and the first review is going to be my scene-by-scene breakdown of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That's what we got going on tonight, chat. But before I go into the nitty-gritty details of this movie, I need to ask you a very important question. That question being, how many of you have seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, chat? I am very curious. The 1989 commercial and critical classic, chat. The third and last chapter in the Indiana Jones trilogy. Yes. Chief Toad, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. But I was here in 2004 when Corpse Christi had a little white girl. Oh, damn. Alan Berger says, yes, Vanny, I quote every line in the film as is it's a favorite movie of all time, Chad. He knows his shit. He's going to keep me on task. Artie says, me. Oh, did you say stuff? Of course, yes. Chief Toke, I seen it. Cat said, yes, long time ago, though. Alex Manelli, yeah. Sierra Spock, yes. Lisa, she has too. Sick, I seen it. Watched it last year. Brandon Kills just watched it rewatched it on Christmas Day. So everybody says yes many times. Most of I actually haven't seen the last really well. I'm gonna tell you about it in just a bit. Oh my God, Chris Rivers, never heard of it. You never heard of it? No, you're messing with me. What happened, Junior? Good to see you. What happened? Welcome. Oh yes, trilogy. Yes, yes. Trilogy. It's a trilogy on this stream, goddammit. Toshiba, good to see you a long time ago. I didn't like it because I didn't get it. Wow, okay, fair enough. Look at the podcast. It says best Indiana Jones or IJ movie in my opinion. IMO. Yes. Also good to have a relevant message today that Nazis are they're very fucking evil, man. Yes. We are pilgrims in an unholy land, my son, as Sean Connery said to good old Junior. Not because I'm an Indiana Jones fan. I have seen it. I do like it, though. Luke Boss, I know The Last Crusade, and The Last Crusade rules. Hell yeah. Hate says it's awesome. I like this shit. Yeah, for me, so it's funny. We have, like, most of you have seen it. Most people like it. We do have a couple who haven't seen it. Some people aren't a big fan. Yeah, for those who don't know me, I mean, I've talked about the Indiana Jones trilogy, Indiana Jones movies, the saga chat. Yes, even Crystal Skull at times. But, no, I've always loved Last Crusade. It's a super close second to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's probably my favorite Indiana Jones movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in my top 10. But Last Crusade is a super close second. It's excellent. I think it's after the Temple of Doom, which I do like. I do enjoy that movie, but it has some problems. It has some flaws, the racism, the annoying, female lead, sadly. It was a bit of a letdown, I imagine, for a lot of people. So Spielberg and Lucas, I mean, they took their time with this one. They spent 4 years thinking, like, all right, fuck, we want to try to avoid the pitfalls that we had with Temple of Doom. Let's work on this. And they went through, like, a lot of scripts. The behind the scenes of this movie was very interesting. They had all sorts of ideas, and Lucas was still adamant about doing his haunted Scottish castle. Spielberg and Lucas were throwing around the idea, along with Christopher Columbus, I think at the time, of doing Indiana Jones and the Monkey King were having it take place in Africa, but they wanted to avoid stereotypical depictions of Africans and offensive depictions of Africans. And so they eventually started to think about making a father-son story and having it focus on the relationship between Indy and his father, Henry. His father, Henry Jones Sr. chap. And that was the thing that Spielberg was most interested in, kind of capitalizing off the, one of the better dynamics in Temple of Doom, which is the father-son relationship between Indy and Short Round in that movie. And then the other part of the film that Lucas was actually adamant about doing was the Holy Grail, where Spielberg was more like, that's kind of, how do we define the Holy Grail? What are even its powers? And so they combined one of the elements from the Monkey King script, where it dealt with immortality, either the Fountain of Youth or a mystical fucking peach that makes you immortal. And they said, let's just give the mystical peach juice that keeps you immortal to the Holy Grail, to the Cup of Christ. And Spielberg's like, sure, let's do that. Sounds good to me. And they also wanted to bring back the Nazis because everyone loves killing Nazis, chat. People get a little uncomfortable when Indy's killing a bunch of brown people, even if they're bad. And so I'm like, yeah, let's just go back to the classics. So this movie is definitely a lot more Raiders of the Lost Ark than Temple of Doom, and it does have a little lighter. I think this is the lightest in tone of all the films. Not to say that there isn't a lot of violence. People get fucked up in this movie, Chad. It's like, Jesus. Something will scar you as a child. It'll scar you as a child, Chad. But I think the humor's well done. Just honestly, if I have any criticisms of this movie, there's one comedic scene that I'm just like, this is weird. It just ends very quickly, but it's like, okay, what were you trying to do here? Other than that, overall, it's fucking great. It's fucking great. But no, I love this movie. It was one of the biggest commercial hits of 89. It was not the highest grossing film, though, Chad, of 1989. You know what was the highest grossing film in 1989? Batman. I think this movie came in second to Batman, which, was a cultural phenomenon. But this movie did very well as well, Chad. It's a fantastic film. It's a fantastic film. And happy to be reviewing it right now. Happy to be closing out the Indiana Jones trilogy tonight. Someday, one day, I will do a scene by scene breakdown for Indiana Jones Crystal Skull. But I need time for that, Chad. I have not seen that movie since it came out in theaters, and I need time. I need to decompress. I'm going to have to, drink. There's a lot of things going on, Chad. But we can go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty details of this movie, Chad. And we start in the beginning. Or at least at the earliest point so far in the Indiana Jones saga, Chad. We start in 1912 in Utah. You know what was going on in Utah in 1912? Nothing. Nothing was going on in Utah, Chad, except this one adventure that a young Indiana Jones went on, Chad. And who plays a young Indiana Jones? River Phoenix. Excellent fucking casting, by the way. Excellent casting. It's like, wow, it's funny because you could definitely see, oh yeah, I can almost see like River Phoenix growing up into the adult Harrison Ford Indy that we have. But apparently River Phoenix, he studied just because he worked with Harrison Ford was adamant about bringing River Phoenix onto the film because River Phoenix played his son in a movie that apparently Harrison Ford loved working on, which is called The Mosquito Coast. And so he's like, I want this guy to play the young version of me in the opening of the movie. And because of all the time that River Phoenix had spent with Harrison Ford, The Mosquito Coast, he just did a perfect, impression of him, basically. But not to the impression where he was like doing all of his manners, but you can see how this kid grew into the man that we see across all these films. And he does an excellent job, Chad. This is a much better opening than the musical number in Temple of Doom. It's like, what the fuck is this? I know Spielberg wanted to make a musical, but I love this whole sequence where we see a young Indy and his father and this terrific chase sequence on horses and the train and all the menagerie of animals. It's very imaginative, Chad. But we do start, we are in R.I.P. to River Phoenix, Chad. He's no longer with us. Died under very sad circumstances, Chad. But he left us with a fantastic performance, an iconic performance in this movie, Chad, as a young teenage Indiana Jones. But this movie does open up in Utah in 1912, and all the Boy Scouts, Indiana Jones, of course, he was a Boy Scout, Chad. His troop, apparently they're exploring this national park in Utah. He's like, I guess he had the troop master going, look, everyone, look at all the rocks and dirt. Enjoy yourselves. We'll meet back in an hour. Make sure to drink your water. But of course, chat, as they park all their horses, you gotta have a fat kid. I mean, that was obligated back in the, if you made a film about childhood trauma or just friendship or whatever, you need a fatty, okay? And of course, as soon as they stop their horses, chat, they're getting off, the fat kid just falls off. I don't know what his name is, and you don't know his fucking name either. You just know he was cast because he was fat. But he's the best friend of Indiana Jones here, chat. Indy's the one that cares for him. He helps him up, and they go explore some caves, chat. And we get to this, the fat kid, Indy, they go through this one cave, they're walking down this tunnel, but then they hear all this clicking and clacking, they hear some pickaxes on stone and shovels shoveling dirt, and he's like, let's go down there. And so him and the fat kid, they go down this tunnel, chat, and they come upon an illegal archaeological excavation, chat, or as I like to say, appropriation, chat. And we have evil Indiana Jones, who's literally just known as Fedora in this scene, who is leading this operation with a menagerie of various characters. Now, I know that Spielberg and Lucas said they kind of wanted to cut down on the racism that was initially in Temple of Doom, but I was doing an audio video commentary for this movie recently, and I realized that one of the characters, I had the subtitles on, and there is a Native American character who is a part of this group, and his name is literally Half-Breed, which I think is a little racist, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, chat? But he's evil. But they're watching this excavation, and then all of a sudden, this young kid I just call him the whoopin' boy, because he's always going, woo, woo-wee, woo, he's always laughing and whooping and shit, because he's opened himself a little box, and inside their box, it is the Golden Cross of Coronado, chat, which was, given to Coronado by Cortez, one of the OG appropriators, if you will. And Indy and the fat kid see this, and Indy's like, that's the fucking cross of Coronado. And the fat kid's like, blah, blah, what are we gonna do, Indy? What are we gonna do? I have to waddle all the way back. What's the plan? He's like, listen, you go tell the troop master that we just found an illegal excavation appropriation team in the Utah National Park. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened here for as long as I've been alive and lived in Utah. Go tell him. And he's like, well, what are you gonna do? He's like, I'm gonna do what I do best. Fuck things up. Apparently, all the guys who just excavated the crucifix, the cross, they're like, well, okay, we'll just put it right here on this table and continue looking for all of the ill-gotten loot we can. And Indy, he gets a little rope because, you know, he's a Boy Scout, ties that, whatever the fucking knot is. He climbs down, and he grabs the cross, chat, and he's like, oh, this is fucking easy, nice. Puts it right in his goddamn shirt, starts crawling back up, but since this is an old, I guess, cave and, old, foundations and stuff, it starts to crumble and the rocks fall down, and the guys see that and they're like, hey, that kid's appropriating what we appropriated, get him! And so everyone starts chasing after, good old Indiana Jones. Oh yeah, he also says, the sheriff, he says, go get the scoutmaster and also get the sheriff, fatty. And so, and he's like, oh geez, feet don't fail me now. And so he starts running. She's like, ooh, and like the way he shouts is the exact same as the way Harrison Ford shouts as Indiana Jones. Like, oh, they nailed that. He did such a great job. But he runs out. And he gets out there and he starts, he just fucking whistles. He whistles for his horse shaft. The horse comes a running and it's right above him. He's like, I'm going to be a fucking cool kid and jump on my horse. And so he jumps and the horse just walks a couple of feet and he lands right on his ass. He's like, God damn it, horse. But these guys are like, get that kid. And so he gets on his horse shit. He gets on his horse and he fucking takes off. And eventually all these guys, they all get in cars and shit. And they have this one guy, Panama Hat. We don't know yet, but he's the leader of the excavation of the appropriation, chat. And he's like, get that white boy. And so they're chasing after him, chat. They're chasing after him. But Indy's like, okay, they're going to run me down in this car. This is just not good. But thankfully, there's a train coming. There's a train coming. And he's like, it's like the Great Train Robbery. I just saw that movie. Fantastic. And so he goes and he jumps onto the train, chat. And I love this entire sequence right here. Oh, I forgot to say. They set up a nice little gag earlier in the movie when Indy's talking to Fatty to go get the Scoutmaster and also to go get the sheriff. Fat Kid has a snake on him, like this little snake, and he's like, oh! And he's like, picks it up. He's like, don't worry about it. It's just a snake. But it's like, but Indiana Jones has a snake phobia. What's that all about? What horrific childhood traumatic event will instill him with his snake phobia? We're going to find out, Chad. So he boards the goddamn train. And all these guys, they start jumping on to chasing after him, chat. And he keeps fucking moving. He's doing it. And he opens up this one train car. It's the reptile car, Chad. I'm sure that's safe. And so he's crawling on his fucking hands and knees. But, you know, there's like alligators and crocodiles below him as these guys are also chasing after him, Chad. But there's too much weight on the, like, the catwalk that they're on. And it goes boom, and it falls forward, Chad. It falls forward. And he lands into some kind of, I don't know what it is. It's like some type of water serpent. It goes, ah! He's like, oh! And then he just yeets himself over to the left side, Chad. And he ends up covered, just completely covered, Chad, in a giant tub of snakes. And he's like, oh, oh! And he fucking freaks out, as you would too, Chad. And then he eventually gets out of there, but there's the childhood trauma, Chad. That when you see a water serpent about to bite your dick, and then also you fall into a giant tub of snakes and they're all crawling all over you, that's the childhood trauma going into you. And so he eventually gets out of there, Chad, but he's still he's freaking out at this point. He's just so scared of the situation. Eventually, the whooping boy, though he's going, woo-wee, woo-woo, he catches up to Indy first. And they start fighting on top of the rhinoceros car, Chad. And so they're going, he's got a knife, he's trying to stab Indy and shit. But then what happens is when they fall down, they hit it. There's a little oil lamp that apparently was hanging above the rhinoceros, and it hits it on the head. And the rhinoceros is like, what the fuck just hit me? And then it's like, I'm pissed. I'm going to get whatever that was up there. And so we cut up. Indy and the whooping boy, they were fighting, like the guys right on top of Indy's about to I'm gonna stab you, and then the rhino just starts putting its horn through the roof and coming very close to them each time, like right near the thigh, until eventually it ends up right between the crotch of Indiana Jones and the whooping boy, and they're like, Jesus! And they were like, all right, truce, geez. And Indy pushes him over at that point. And then eventually, Chad, more of the guys, like the half-breed guy, he comes over. More of the thugs are approaching Indy. But they're coming across this water tower, Chad, and I guess there's this little, like, crane attached to the water tower, and he's like, I'm going to put some distance between me and them. And so he grabs onto the crane, Chad, and he's like, woo, he spins around, like, yeah, I put some distance, and he stops, and he ends up right in front of fucking Fedora, Chad. Evil Indiana Jones. Jay Pizza, thank you so much, Jay Pizza Boy, thank you for the very, very kind 108 biddies, and for the 15 biddies earlier as well. Pleasure to have you here. That's super sweet of you. And another, oh my God, there's another 108 biddies. His name, they literally call him Half-Breed. Am I lying, shit? Am I lying? Alison Doody, who also she plays Elsa in the movie. Elsa Schneider. Indeed. Thank you, Pizza Boy, for the 100. Look at those biddies back to back. 200 plus biddies. Very, very kind of you. Thank you. But as Indy is, when he grabs the crane, he spins all the way around you, and boom, he is right in front of Fedora, who is like, where you, kid, it's over, there's nowhere to go, just give me the goddamn cross, okay? And Indy's like, this belongs in a museum, and it's like, okay, just get me to the fucking thing. But then Indy, when he's crawling back on his booty, he falls right through this shaft. Jay Pizza Boy, another 14 biddies, thank you so much. But he falls right through this shaft, Chad, and goes boom, and he's like, what the hell just happened? And he hears something growling and roaring at him. He's got like really long hair, he parts his hair, and it's a lion, Chad, it's a motherfucking lion, it's Mufasa himself. It's like, Jesus. And so Indy, he's like, oh God, what am I gonna do? And he sees, when he backs up to them, all the way to the back of the train car, there's a whip right next to him. He's like, oh, the whip. And he grabs the whip, Chad. He goes, and he fucking hits himself in the face. And he gets the scar across his chin, Chad, just like Indiana Jones. That's the origin of it, Chad. Here's all the traumatic incidents in one. And so at this point, even the thugs who are chasing him, it's like, kid, just throw us the whip, okay? Throw us the whip. We'll get you up here. And so eventually, They get him up there, Chad. They get him up there. The line almost gets him, too. And the Fedora's like, just give us the cross. And he's like, this cross belongs to Coronado's, his descendants. And they're like, all of his fucking descendants are dead. There's no one left. Okay, then it belongs in a museum. And they're like, all right, shut up, kid. And they start grabbing him stuff. And then Indy apparently still has snakes in his shirt. And a snake comes out and starts biting on the face of the whooping boy. He's like, eh, eh. And Mr. Half-Breed, he has to help him. Indy, he takes off because of all the shenanigans. And he gets to the next train car. It's the last train car. And it's the magic car. All that mumbo-jumbo chat. And he goes into that car. And he gets inside of this a box. He gets inside of this, box used by a magician. Fedora, he enters in. He sees the box moving. And he's like, all right, kid. All right, open up. I said open up. And then he opens the box. It collapses. And Indy's not in there. He's like, son of a bitch. And he looks outside. He opens the door. And he sees Indy running down the tracks. And the guy's like, damn. But he smiles. He says, damn it. But he's like, I like this kid's moxie. I cut of this kid's jib. And then Chad eventually cut to Indy as he's running into town. He's got the cross in hand, Chad, and he goes to the Jones residence. Right in his mailbox, it says Jones. And he passes by the dog, Chad. He loves that dog, and for good reason. And he goes in there, and we see not Sean Connery. It's actually, it's Sean Connery's voice, but it's a different actor. And good old Henry Sr., he's writing in this diary, Chad, writing like or drawing some biblical figures and things. And he's coming in, and he's like, Dad. And he's like, Junior. And he's like, Dad, I just have to tell you something. He's like, wait. And he's like, no, Dad, listen to me. He's like, no, Junior. And he's like, oh, shit. And he's like, I'm sorry, Dad. He's like, count down from 100. And he's like, all right, 199. And he's like, in Greek. And he's like, fuck. And so he has to do it that way. And eventually he hears someone knock on the door. So the dad's like, I don't care about whatever you have to say. I'm concentrating on my fucking medieval literature right here, okay? I'm trying to find the Holy Grail, son. I don't have time for you. But then Indy, he hears the fat kid with the bugle going. He's arrived with the sheriff. The sheriff's in tow, chat. The scoutmaster's there, too. Jay Pizza Boy, thank you so much for giving us up to Black Knight, to Martin Lawrence himself. Thank you. Thank you for generosity, man. Really do appreciate it. But then the fat kid, he walks in, and he like knocks the Trump out of his head. He goes, and he spits all over Indy, and he's like, Jesus Christ, man. Stop spitting water in my face. Stop spitting your spittle in me. And he's like, I'm sorry, Indy, I brought the sheriff. And the sheriff comes in, and he's like, Sheriff, listen, I just have to tell you something. These guys, they're appropriating. He's like, I'm well aware of the excavation to appropriate Native American and other artifacts. Go ahead and give it to the white man, kid. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? It's like you've entered into the business of Mr. Panama Hat, and you can't do that, okay? So, wealthy benefactor, give him the cross. And so Indy has to hand over the fucking cross to Fedora, who's there, Chad, and then Fedora hands it over to the whooping boy. He goes, woo, woo-wee, woo-wee. He's all excited, and then he eventually runs outside and gives the Cross of Coronado to Panama Hatcha. But Fedora, he has some last words for Indy. He's like, hey, kid, you may have lost today, but there's always the future. What are you going to do about it? And he takes his hat off, Chad, and he gives it to Indiana Jones. And that's Indy's hat, Chad. That's the hat that the guy gave him. Now, originally, one of the things that Lucas and Spielberg wanted to do with this Fedora character, because they literally just call him Fedora, was have this be Abner Ravenwood, Chad, Dr. Abner Ravenwood, who is the father of Marion Ravenwood in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and this is how they initially met. But they went against that idea because they didn't like the idea of making Professor Ravenwood a villain, or someone who was appropriating things. Chad, was too rough. It was too rough. But thank you for the 50 biddies. And now I just got to notification the stream. Oh, yeah, man. No, the notification system on Twitch is super fucked up. It's super fucked up. That's why I always encourage people, please do check out my social media on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. I usually post an hour to a half hour beforehand before I start streaming. So go ahead and check that out. But yeah, I'm sorry, man. Notification system is awesome, but he puts the hat on Indy, and it's a great transition shot here because then Indy he looks up, and we're now with Harrison Ford, who is just apparently in a massive rainstorm, chat, and getting the shit kicked out of him because he looks up and he smiles and boom, and then it cuts. It's 1938. off the coast of Portugal, chat. That's where we are. And he's getting his goddamn ass kicked in. It's rough. Colonel Useless, thank you for gifting a sub to Millennial Prince. Appreciate that. And Luke the Boss, thank you for the 5 biddies. All the support chats and really appreciate it. We got 69 viewers here. Nice. So, and then they keep just punching the shit on Indy, and then who walks up to Indy? An old man Panama hat, and he sees that Indy has the cross in there. He takes the cross, and he's like, "This is the second time you've stolen my property, Dr. Jones." And Indiana Jones, he's like, "That belongs in a museum," and it's the iconic line of this movie. And Panama hat's like, "So do you. Throw him overboard." It's like, oh shit, they're gonna throw him overboard. And so as this fucking boat is rocking back and forth, this massive storm, and these guys are just kind of struggling to stay upright. Indy just uses the momentum to throw them off. They're like, ah, and they go overboard. And then Indy, he grabs the old Panama hat and just yanks him, just fucking yanks. He's like, ah, and he just punches him in the face, and he grabs the cross of Coronado. But then more guys come out trying to get him. And then Indy, he jumps on a, I guess it's like a pulley, and he just swings all the way around, chat, until he just jumps off the boat. And right when that's about to happen, chat, is good old Panama hat, piece of shit of culture appropriate Panama hat, he's just trying to waddle back to the cabin. Apparently the mast comes down, hits a bunch of barrels filled with that gasoline, chat, all that gasoline, and the whole fucking boat goes up. Ba-boom! It's a cool sound effect too. And then Indy's like, he comes up from the water and he gets himself a little life raft right there. He's holding on to the goddamn thing, the little donut, the little raft donut, and then he sees the hat of Panama Hat, chat, as it sinks down into the depths where he belongs, chat. That's what you get for being a goddamn appropriator. Eventually, though, we cut from that, and we are now in the classroom of Indiana Jones. Dr. Jones, that is, chat. Deadpool, thank you so much for the 15 biddies. I did the fedora, his Admiral Ravenwood. For Temple Doom, and he was a bit of a greedy grave robber himself. Yeah, he was just like, I don't give a shit. It's true. He's like, I'm going to take this for myself. Thank you very much. Diamonds in those rocks? Yeah, forget those goddamn pores. I'm taking it for me, baby. So at this point, he's very much all about the, this belongs in a museum. And that's just what he's about to do, Deadpool, matter of fact. Because he's back in class, and he's giving a lecture, and thankfully, I mean, all the male and female students are still eyeing him, but you don't got anyone with, like, I love you on their eyelids. Not that time. That girl, she got those tattooed on, Chad. They tried to remove the tattoo. They ripped her eyelids off, and so she's always looking like this in class. Now, that girl's there, but she can't blink, Chad. She's got to constantly put in, fucking eye drops because of her lidless eyes. It's horrifying, Chad. It's horrifying. But they're all listening to Dr. Jones. She's giving his lecture, and he's saying, all right, class, when it comes to archaeological digs, you have to rely on history. You have to rely on the native cultures. You have to rely on the architecture of these places. You're never going to find the treasure with the X marking the spot. X never marks the spot. Okay? Class dismissed. Get out of here. And they all fucking leave. They all leave. And eventually, who comes in the class, Chad? Good old Marcus Brody. Good old Demhall Elliott, Chad, who sadly, by this time, had announced that he was sick with AIDS. And he was actually sick for most of the production of this movie. I think he died in the late 90s, I want to say, like in 99. But if you want to, I mean, honestly, the thing is, he does a great job. He gets more to do in this movie than he ever does in any other. I mean, he does not in the second one, but he is, of course, in the first one. But yeah, he goes on the adventure of Indy and stuff. And he's not like a hands-on kind of guy, but he does a really good job. He does a really good job. Jay Pizza Boy, again, thank you so much for the gifted sub to the ovarian Exploda. Somebody getting pregnant tonight, chat. Very nice. Thank you, Jay Pizza Boy. Appreciate that. But Marcus comes over to Indy. He's like, great lecture. And he's like, yeah, thanks, Marcus. Yeah. And he's like, do you have it? He's like, goddamn right I have. It's kind of like an inverse of the Raiders of the Lost Ark scene when he wasn't able to get the golden fertility statue with the baby being front pooped out. This time he got the fucking thing, got the cross of Coronado, and he's like, the thing you've been searching all your life for, all my life for, chat. And he's like, he's donating it to the museum. And Marcus, I'll find a fine place for this in our collection. What are you going to be doing now? He's like, I got to grade a whole bunch of papers. I got to meet with all these people and professors. I got to work on my syllabus for next semester. He's like, I'll see you later. And so they leave, chat, and Indy, he goes into this one room where his secretary is, and all these people are there. They're all like any college students, like they're asking for when he's going to grade all these assignments, if he can write them some letters of recommendation. And he's like, just leave it all with Susan. And Susan's like, fuck you, Indy. It can't always be on me, all right? I'm grading the papers now that you're off gallivanting around the world. He's like, I'm going to go to my office. And so he goes inside of his office, chat, and it's the boiler room. I think it's so fun, but it's filled with all types of knickknacks and ancient objects and things. He's just sitting in the boiler right behind him, and he's just exasperated because he hears all the people banging on the door. You actually see them through the frosted glass. He's like, fuck this. I'm not dealing with this right now. And he just puts his hat on and just jumps out the window. And he just starts walking away, going to his car, Chad. And then we see, Chad, we see the perspective of these men. These men clothed in black. It's like, oh, what's this all about? And they got these black suits on. And as Indy's walking away, one of these guys comes up to him. He's like, Dr. Jones, can we speak with you for a moment? And one guy goes to Indy's left. And the other one goes behind Indy. And he's like, shit. But then we then cut and Indy is inside of a very lavish looking room, chat. Looks like very expensive apartment. And who comes walking in, chat? Julian Glover, Grand Admiral Veers, Grand Maester Pycelle, also known as, in this movie, chat, Walter Donovan. Incredibly rich American socialite Walter Donovan. And he's like, Dr. Jones, it's so good to see you. He's like, oh, meeting someone like you, Walter Donovan, it's an honor. He's like, oh, please. Sorry about that. We're just throwing a party right now. My wife's been working on the spread all this week. People enjoying themselves. But I wanted to take the time to talk to you because I am an appropriator, if you will. I am an appropriator of ancient objects, and I have been interested in this latest discovery that we have here. I just wanted to get your opinion on it, if you don't mind. And he's like, all right. And so reveals this ancient stone tablet, but it's like cut in half, but it's in the shape of a medieval shield. And then he's looking at this. He's like, holy shit, this is one of the shields of the Knights of the Holy Grail, the 3 knights that protected the mythical Holy Grail, chat, the cup of Christ himself, good old JC, baby Jesus. And he's like, yes, one of our last researchers recovered this. And I was just wondering if you could get any information from this. And so Indy's like studying this tablet, and he's like, this inscription is for the cup of Christ, indeed. And he goes to he provides like these books for Indy to look at. Goes over there. It's like the Holy Grail, the cup that they can give man immortality. And Indy's like, wow, it's pretty cool. And then Walter Donovan's wife walks in, and this is fun. This is a fun little Easter egg. In the background, they're playing the Imperial March, except it's like slower. But it's like, oh, that's kind of cool because he was famously General Veers in Empire Strikes Back. He was the one that led the assault, the ground assault on Hoth. That was him, which is pretty cool. But so the wife comes in, he's like, they loving the food, honey. He's like, fantastic. And Indy's like, well, listen, this is really cool and all, but why did you want me here? He's like, listen, I want you to be a part of a team trying to find the Holy Grail. Okay, this could be the greatest archaeological discovery of the century, Dr. Jones. I want you to lead it. And he's like, listen, I appreciate that and everything. However, my father, Dr. Henry Jones Sr., he's the expert in medieval, archaeology and literature. And I mean, Holy Grail is his passion. He would be the person that you would want to meet. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, we know. We worked with him. He was our original researcher before he disappeared weeks ago. And he's like, my dad disappeared? He's like, yes. We're hoping that if you find the Grail, you'll be able to find your father, Dr. Jones. He's like, God damn it, Dad. At the same time, Indy also gets some mail, and he receives a big old thick package, chat, from Venice, Italy. He's like, what's this all about? But then he contacts Marcus, and he says, hey, Marcus, have you heard from my dad recently? Because Indy's dad and Marcus are on pretty good terms. Indy hasn't talked to his father in years. And so he's like, no. But he's like, why? Have you heard anything? And he's like, well, apparently he's missing. And so what they do is they get in a car together, and they go to good old dad's house, Chad. They walk in, everything seems normal, but then they pull a curtain aside, and oh my God, his entire living room has been destroyed. It looks like someone was looking for something, Chad. What could it be? What could it be? But then he realizes, like, wait a minute, Venice, Italy. The dad was in Venice, Italy. He opens it up, and it's his dad's journal, Chad, his diary. The same diary that we saw him scratching and scratching and scrawling in the beginning of the movie, Chad, when he told Junior to shut the fuck up. And he's like, oh, my Lord, my dad must be in Venice, or we'll be able to track him down in Venice. Like, okay, I gotta go on this. Marcus like, oh, you ain't going alone, motherfucker. I'm going with you too. He's like, oh, cool. And they do like a bro fist thing, and then they do the whole epic thing where they get on the plane. Walter Donovan's there. He's like, oh, Dr. Jones, I'm going to tell you right now, you won't regret this. I'm a very trustworthy white appropriator. You won't have any problems from me. Right? He's like, fantastic. I'll see you later. He's like, yes, you will. Yes, you will. And so they get on the plane. We have the dun 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 as they fly from a good old United States of America, chat, and they get to Venice. Also, Walter Donovan told them you're going to meet Elsa Schneider. And she was your point of contact for your father. And so Indy and Marcus, they go to Venice, and Indy, he loves Venice. He's always saying, Venice. It's beautiful, chat, although the city is slowly fucking sinking on itself. But as they get off their little gondola boat, who they walk into, chat? The blonde bombshell of Elsa Schneider. She's like, it's so nice to meet you, Herr Jones, Herr Marcus. And he's like, oh, an Austrian. Okay. I'm sure even though Austria has been, occupied by the Nazis, I'm sure she's not a Nazi, chat. So they start talking, and, because he wants to know, like, okay, you and my father were in this together. He's like, yes, he was very excited. I never saw him. He was giddy as a schoolboy, researching all about the Grail and finding all these clues and such. And he's like, I never would have pictured my father giddy. You would be surprised, Dr. Jones. He was very giddy with me. It's like, what did that mean? Was that a sexual innuendo? We'll find out, chat. But he says, where was my father's research going? And she says, we were going to this specific ancient library in the middle of Venice. That's where he believes the next clue, the next Knight Shield is. And she's like, oh, that's cool. And so I'll take you there. And so they go to that library, chat, and it looks like a giant temple or mausoleum, but it is in fact a library. And they go inside, and they'll be very quiet, and they get to this specific room where it has like these stained glass windows and like this numbering and things. And he's like, oh shit, this is my dad's diary. And he scrolls, and he sees the diary, and he sees the numbers, Chad. It's like 2 on one side, 7 on the other side. And he's like, but where's the X? Where's the 10? Where's the 10? Where's the X? And then everyone's looking for like an X, and he's like, wait a minute, because he's looking on the floor, and then he goes up this spiral staircase until he looks down, and he goes, 10. X marks the spot. See, X does mark the spot, chat. Indy lied in the beginning. There you go. Just like looking for treasure. But, chat, you know who's watching them? You know who's watching them when they're finding the X? The Holy Order of the Fez, chat. So these guys who wear fezes, they love them. They've been watching Dr. Jones this entire time, and they don't look very happy with him being there, chat, appropriating shit. So eventually, though, we cut back to Indy, who's like, okay, we got to hammer through the floor because this is where the grave, the catacombs of the knight is, who famously, Chad, in case you don't know, you had these 3 knights who went all the way to the Middle East of the Cup of Christ to protect it, but only 2 knights came back, Chad, and they eventually died, and 1 allegedly stayed there to protect the Grail for all time. What dedication, Chad. And so these were the other 2 are buried. So Indy's like, well, we got to get to the floor. And so he grabs like this, I don't know, this banister or something. And he's like, shit, it's going to be awkward. But then we also cut to this librarian who's just stamping these books, from that they've been returned. And so when Indy goes, oh, the guy stamps the books and goes, boom. And so he hits it at the same time Indy hits the ground. And the guy's like, whoa. And then Indy does it again. He does it again. He's like, oh, and he just puts it right there, just kind of looks at it a bit. Eventually, Indy breaks through the floor, destroying that ancient Venetian floor, chat. And it just smells like, all centuries of dead, decomposing rat shits down there, chat. They open that up, and Indy's like, Marcus, you're too old to get down here with us. Just stay up here and keep an eye on things. He's like, will do, Indy. And so Elsa and Indy, they go into it, and then the Holy Order of the Fez comes down, and they go bonk, and they bonk poor Marcus Brody on the head, and they drag him off, Chad. They just drag him off. Though, eventually, we can then cut to Elsa and Indy as they're exploring the catacombs. Indy, he gets his little lighter out there. He finds, apparently, the entire catacombs is flooded with petroleum, which I think is very dangerous. I don't know how there's other creatures living down there. We don't know what they are yet, but I would imagine they would all be dead. But he manages to get this bone, because it's all ancient catacombs and graves and everything, and he wraps up this cloth he finds. And I feel like the whole thing would just go. As soon as you light that thing, everything would be set on fire, but it's not. And so he lights that as they're going down the tunnel. And eventually, they're passing by like all of these paintings on the wall, and they get to the last one, and it's the Ark of the Covenant, and they play the music from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then Elsa's like, what is this? And he's like, that's the Ark of the Covenant. And she's like, how do you know? Believe me, I know. I was like, oh, that's really funny. But eventually, they get to this other room, and it's just covered in thousands of rats. It's so disgusting. The smell must be horrible. It must be just, I don't know how you could get down there. I remember, Chad, like my old day job, we had a rat infestation in our building, and the smell was horrible. And so this is all of these rats, all this petroleum, all this dead shit everywhere. It must reek, but they don't let you know that. And so they're going down. And eventually they get to the room. They get to the room where they find the rat covered sarcophagus of the knight. And they're like, fuck it. They just push that thing off there, chat. And they see that it has the full shield is completely intact. He's like, this is fucking fantastic. And he does a little etch-a-sketch thing. And he takes like a big white sheet of paper. And he takes like this chalk or whatever. And just so he can get the inscription, chat. Because it's going to be hard to fucking carry out that goddamn stone shield, right? And he gets that, chat. But then the Order of the Fez are like, we got to burn these motherfuckers and all these rats. This place stinks. And so they just take a match and throw it in the petroleum water, and the whole thing just starts going up. And so as Elsa and Indy are walking out, Chad, if they see the fire coming, all the rats are like, as you would too, Chad. And they're like, fuck. And so they were clever with this. They're clever with this, where what they do is they flip over the sarcophagus of the knight, because fuck him, he's dead, and they hide underneath the sarcophagus in the water, because there's a nice little air bubble, Chad, as the entire room is engulfed in flames. They're like, this must not have been fun to film at all. Or maybe it was fun for the film. I don't know. Probably not for Allison Doody. And so Indy's like, don't worry, I'm just gonna go and look for a way out. I'm gonna open my eyes in petroleum water and be totally fine. I'm pretty sure if you opened your eyes while underneath just petroleum water, it would just burn them horrifically. But it's okay, don't worry about it. And so he does that shit. He's looking around and shit. But then poor Elsa, chat, all the rats, because the rats have nowhere to go, and they're like, safety. And so they start digging through the sarcophagus bubble that they have, and they start pouring in, and they start crawling on her face. She's like, ah! It looks really good. You know why it looks really good, chat? Because they're real. Because they're real rats. So they're using practical rats or animatronic rats, not some CGI bug bullshit like from Crystal Skull. I love that, because every Indiana Jones movie, you get like an animal thing. Famously, you had you got the spiders and the snakes from Raiders. You get the bugs and the cockroaches from Temple of Doom. And then, of course, you have the rats in Last Crusade. And the rats are very good. I love what they do with the rats. And I hate the ants. The ants suck in Crusade because they don't look real at all. But there's weight to these rats. But they're all crowing over Elsa and fucking Elsa Duty. She's selling a real good shit. She's dutying right now. But then Indy, he comes up and he's like, I found a way out. And so he takes her, chat, and they go underneath the water. And eventually we just cut to the middle of this like little Venetian cafe, outside cafe area. And then these people are near like a manhole cover, and Indy just goes, bah! He bursts out of the manhole cover, chat, and he has Elsa, and he's like tripping over him. Some people are like, oh my God. And he's like, Venice. And he just reeks of rat shit and everything, chat. Just really gross, really gross. But then eventually, Chad, he's like, oh shit, it's the Holy Order of the Fez. Those guys are always protecting the Grail. And so what happens here, Indy has to take off of Elsa because they're trying to shoot them. And so Indy and Elsa, they run to like the Venetian pier. They just push over a guy and they steal his boat, Chad. Well, the rest of the Holy Order of the Fez, they get into mutual boats as well. And they chase after Indy. Really fucking love this chase sequence, Chad, as they're just speeding down. You got, it's like about two, I think it's like two boats. You got one boat, and then you got the secondary boat with the main guy. But the first boat's right behind Indy, and Indy, he gets his fucking gun out, and he's shooting them and everything like that. And he's like, go around the boats. And she's like, what? What did you say, Jones? Go between the boats? Go around the boat. And she goes right between these boats as they're coming together. And they're like, ooh, they're right on the sides. They're scraping the sides of the boats. Then boom, but she gets them through. And he's like, what the hell are you doing? I said, go around the boats. You said between the boats, Dr. Jones. But then the other two guys, or the other boat, they were following him through, and they're not so fucking lucky, Chad, because the boats are coming together, and they go, and they explode. They explode because of the thick cheeks of the boats crushes them, Chad. But Indy and Elsa are still being pursued. They're still being pursued by the Holy Order of the Fez. And so they keep going, and they got the main leader, Chad. He's smashing against Indy's boat. And Indy's like, I've had enough of this bullshit. And he shoots the motor. He jumps over there, knocks over one guy, and he just starts punching the shit out of the leader, Chad, whose name I believe is Kazim. I believe his name is Kazim, Chad, the Holy Order of the Fez. But then the boat shuts down, but then the boat starts getting sucked into this giant propeller of this other boat, and it's like, and Elsa's just kind of sitting there like, what do you want me to do? And this thing's getting closer and closer, and he just continues to beat the shit out of this guy, and he's like, where's my father? Where is he? And the guy's not saying nothing or to nobody, but then eventually the propeller, I love this scene because all the practical effects is great. Because then the propeller hits the boat and starts destroying it. And he's like, are you? And the guy's like, he's like, are you ready to die, Dr. Jones? Because I am. If you take me with you, I'll tell you everything. And he's like, God damn it, okay, all right, fine. So he takes him and he explains to him, he's like, listen, man, I'm not here to find the Holy Grail. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. I'm just here to find my father, all right? And the guy's like, listen, okay, I'm the leader of the Holy Order of the Fez, and he has this tattoo, and we protect the Holy Grail. We also get Fezes, which is awesome. I know where your father is. And he's like, all right, tell me where he is. And he's like, drop me off here at this little jetty. And so they drop him off, and he's like, your dad, okay, is in Endelborschdorf Castle in Austria. Okay, that's where he's being held. Good day. I will come at the end of the movie as a blackrifice, okay? Because in this movie, Chad, if you're brown, you're going down. This is kind of how it is, Chad, sadly. That's that, but we do see Kazim one last time, but it's in the form of a blackrifice. Eventually, Indy and Elsa, they go back to the hotel, they find Marcus, and Marcus is like, I'm sorry, Indy, I didn't keep an eye out. So that's good, Marcus. But they start going over the inscription of the shield and also the diary and everything, and the inscription basically gives a hint to where they need to go, what path, and they have to go to the path of the crescent moon. And fucking Marcus is like, oh wait, Indy, I know that map. And he scrolls through the diary until he finds the page. This is the thing your father was talking about. This is the path of the crescent moon. And they realize, oh shit, the path of the crescent moon is in the empire of Hette, which is kind of like where Turkey is now. And like, we got to go there. And I was like, oh, this is so exciting. And fucking Indy's like, oh, wait a minute. I got to make sure. I got to go find my dad. I'm going to send you there. I'm going to go call my boy Sala, good old John Rhys Davies. I'm going to call Sala. He's going to take care of you. Get a head start. I'm going to go to fucking Austria and get my dad. Okay, so he rips out the page, and Mark's like, what are you doing? He's like, keep this with you, because if anyone else gets this, clearly people are searching for this book right now, okay? So we got to keep this secret, Mark. He's like, okay, Indy. And so Indy, he gets up, and he walks back to his room, which is completely disheveled and destroyed. He's like, what the fuck happened? And then he goes and checks on Elsie. He's like, Elsie bursts into her room, and her room's completely destroyed and disheveled. And eventually he hears her like in the bathroom, and he opens the door, and she's naked, and the boobs are out, and he's just like, oh, Indy, what are you doing? And he's like, come here. And she's like, okay. And they walk up. She's like, what happened to my room? And he's like, I like to know the same thing. And it's like, what were you doing with my father? And she's like, we were doing nothing. We have researchers. He's like, you have a very German accent. It's Austrian. You think I would just destroy my room looking for the diary? And he's like, you mean this diary? You've had it the whole time. He's like, yes, I did. Why didn't you tell me? Because I don't trust dames like you. And she slaps him. She slaps him across the face. And he's like, that's an invitation for a smooch if I ever saw one. And he starts smooching her, chat. And they start having the sex. And she just starts sucking on that earlobe like no tomorrow, chat. And he comes up because he hears some guy hollering and singing some, Venetian, Italian boppity boop, boppity boop, and he's like, Venice. And he proceeds to have the sex again, chat. But we're now transitioning from Venice, and we got to go to Nazi-occupied Austria, everyone's favorite tourist destination in 1938. So they go to Berndobaden Castle in Austria, chat, and Indy's like, it's raining, it's fucking pouring rain, and Indy's like, we need to bamboozle whoever is behind the door. And we get to the only moment in the movie that I'm just kind of confused by. I was like, what was the point of this? And she's like, how do we do that, Indy? We need disguises, Elsa. So they decide to swap clothes. And so when they knock on the door, Indy is pretending to be this Scottish lord, but his accent is he sounds Scottish, German, and like Spanish all at the same time. And it's like this butler comes in, and Indy's like, you're making us wait at the door that entire time. Why were you doing that? Achoo! And look, you made me catch a sniffle. It's just so weird. And he's like, this is my assistant. And she has his fedora on. She's kind of all westernized. He's like, look at her voice. She's like, yeah, I am from America, yeah. It's like, no. And the butler's like, okay, what do you do here? What do you do? He's like, I'm here to look at your tapestries. Tapestries? Yes. This is the castle, ain't it? You have many tapestries, don't you? And he's like, yes, we have many tapestries here. But if you are a Scottish lord, then I am Mickey Mouse. And then he goes, how dare he? And just punches him, bam, just punches him in the face. He sounds like Shrek. He does sound like Shrek. And it's very weird. And it's like, all right, it's over. And they knock out the butler. And they go over, they look over a railing. I was like, oh, it's a bunch of Nazis. And then he goes, I hate these guys. Nazis. Hate these guys. Of course you do, Indy. And he's like, all right, we got to look for my dad. And so they get to like the second floor. So it's a Nazi compound, chat. It's a Nazi-occupied castle because the Bryn Bram Dorfs of Austria apparently are all dead, or they gave the castle to the Nazis. But they get to like the second or third floor, and Indy's like, my dad's in this room. And she's like, how do you know? Because the room's fucking wired. And she goes, he's like, listen, you stay here, okay? Don't, just stay here. I'll be right back. I'm going to go get my dad. And so he opens the window. She's like, be careful, Indy, yeah. And so he whips over to a gargoyle chat, swings over, and he gets over to the other window, which is not wired, thankfully. Whips over there and swings, and he just Kool-Aid Man's his way through the window. Chad's covered in wood, and he's like, oh, Dad, are you in here? And all of a sudden, Chad, he gets bopped on by a vase. Big, thick vase crashes in his head. And he's like, oh, Jesus Christ. And then who comes from the shadows, chat? Sean motherfucking Connery, chat. James Bond himself. And he's like, Junior, is that you? Yes, sir, it's me. And he's like, Junior, what are you doing here? I'm here to save you, sir. And he's like, it's great, son, that's great. It's a shame. He's like, what? And it's like the Ming Dynasty. It's terrible. Oh, thank God. He's like, what's so funny? What's so funny? It's a fake. It's a fake right here. You can tell. You can tell how that it was constructed. And he just throws it onto the goddamn side of the room. And he's like, Dad, there's fucking Nazis everywhere. He's like, okay, well, I don't understand. Because he's not used to this shit, chap. Okay, Dr. Henry Jones, he's not used to any of this. Like, listen, Dad, we got to get out of here. I have Elsa here. We got to go. She's like, what are you talking about? You have Elsa. What do you mean? But all of a sudden, chap, now, the Nazis, they start coming, they start running up, and boom, they open the door, and they got the fucking gun on Indy, and he's like, oh shit, and you know, like, they got both their hands. Oh, that's the thing, too, they ask, I think that they have the, like, both their hands up. All the Nazis come in here and are like, that is the diary. He's like, I don't have it. And what are you talking about? And like Dr. Jones is like, yes, I shunt it away. I absolutely shunt it away. Yes, it's gone from here. And Indy's like, yeah, totally sent the diary away. He's like, yeah, wait, you didn't bring it with you now, did you? He's like, yeah, he's like, why would you do that? I sent it away from myself so the Nazis couldn't get it. What are you doing, Junior? You fucking idiot. He's like, Dad, stop calling me Junior. And he grabs the gun and he just murders all of these Nazis, chat. And Henry's like, oh my God, you're so violent. What have you done? What have you done, son? He's like, come on, Dad. And they keep going. But then they hear Elsa. She's screaming. She's screeching, hollering. And he's like, you got to save Elsa, Dad. She's like, Junior, I don't understand. And he kicks open the fucking door. And we have Colonel, I don't know, his name is Volgert or something. What's this guy's name? His name is Colonel, Ernest. I think, oh God, what's his name, chat? Ernest Vogel, that's his name, Chad. Ernest Vogel, and he has Elsa in a headlock and a gun pointed at her fucking head. And Indy's like, let her go. And he's like, please help me, Indy, help me. And fucking Sean Connery's like, let the fucking bitch die. Let her die. Who gives a shit? He's like, Dad, how can you say that? She's a Nazi. She's one of them. And Ernest Vogel's like, I will shoot her if you not hand over the diary, Herr Jones. And he's like, Elsa's like, Indy, please help me. And he's like, okay. And he pushes the gun away, throws the gun away, and he hands over the diary. And Colonel Vogel, he pushes Elsa off of him, and then she's right on top of Indy, and she's crying to him, and she looks up, and he realizes, oh my God, you're a Nazi. What gave it away? Indy? The German accent, the blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, the air of superiority to everybody else. I don't know, the Aryanness of it. And she takes the diary from him. She's like, I'm sorry, Indy. You were one of my best. And he's like, oh, shit. And Dr. Henry Jones, Sean Connery's like, you fucked up, son. You fucked up. And so they take them prisoner, and they walk him down to this main living area at this point. And, you know, Indy's just so fucking just bummed out because he's like, he embarrassed himself in front of his dad. He got bamboozled by a Nazi bitch, Chad. It's just not going good. And, you know, Elsa, she has a diary, and she goes over to this guy seated on the far side of the room and starts talking. We don't know who he is. And Indy's like, how did you know she was a Nazi? And he's like, yeah, she talks in her sleep. And Indy's like, what? And fucking Sean Connery gets this little smile on his face. He's like, I mean, I didn't trust her. He's like, oh my God, Dad. He got his dad's sloppy seconds, Shaq. Can you believe it? I told you not to trust her. And he's like, and I said the same thing, Dr. Jones. And who stands up, chat? Fucking Walter Donovan. Julian Glover himself is there, chat. He's like, holy shit, Walter Donovan, you're a Nazi? He's like, sure. Yeah, I guess I am. An American Nazi party. Yes, and I am working with the Nazis at trying to obtain the Holy Grail. And so he's looking at the pages and shit. He goes, what the fuck is this? What's going on here? His page is missing in here. What the hell? And then Elsa goes to Indy. She's like, where are the pages, Indy? And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, you gave him the Marcus, didn't you, son of a bitch? And it's like, oh, we'll be able to track down Marcus easy. No problem whatsoever. Won't be an issue. And he's like, Oh, you guys. And Sean Connery's like, you didn't drag poor Marcus into this. He's not built for this kind of thing. And he's like, oh, little do you know, Dad. Little do all these Nazi fucks know. Marcus, he is a master of disguise. He knows a dozen languages. He has infinite resources. You won't be able to find him. Even when your men get to the place he might possibly be, he'll be long gone by a week. You'll never find him, you Nazi Aryan bastards. And then we cut to Marcus in Turkey, and he's like wearing this bright white suit, and he's like, does anyone speak English? Hello? Does anyone speak ancient Greek? Oh no. And so he just continues walking down. Yeah, it's Dana Carvey, that in Master of Disguise. He has his turtle suit packed and ready to go. But as he's walking, Chad, who does he happen to walk into? Because he was waiting for him. Sala! John Reese Davies like, Marcus, my friend, it's so good to see you. He's like, oh, Sala, it's so good to see a familiar face. I didn't know where I was going. He's like, I got you. Where's Indy? Where's Father? He's like, he's getting his father from Castle Brimbramdorf in Austria. He's like, oh, very good. And we could continue our search for the Grail. He's like, yes, indeed. And he's like, here, I'll take you to my house. And so they're walking, and then they're accosted by two goddamn Gestapo guys in full black. And like, where are your papers? And it's almost like, oh shit, the papers, of course. I have this morning's edition right here. And he goes, Marcus, run. And Marcus is like, yeah, he doesn't know what's going on. As you can see, it's a very interesting story about a beautiful couple that just got married. And he's like, run. And he's like, yes. And he says, run. And he punches the Nazi in the face. And Solid starts taking out all these Nazis by himself, Chad. It's like, he don't need no Indiana Jones to get the shit done, Chad. He starts punching and kung fu fighting all these Nazis and everything. And eventually he gets Marcus. He's like, hide in here, hide in this room. Hide in this little shop here. He gets him, he goes up this ramp, hides in the shop, and all of a sudden, Chat, the shop facade falls apart, and it's a Nazi truck. And Saul's like, shit. And so the Nazis immediately got poor Marcus, Chat. Like, wow, faster than you would even thought. Eventually, we cut back to Austria, Chat, where they're like, well, eventually we will get Marcus and we'll get the pages. But Donovan's like, I bid you adieu, Dr. Jones. I'm sorry we couldn't work together. And he walks away. Eventually, Elsa, she walks she's right in front of Indy. They're all tied up, like Indy and Sean Connery, they're tied up together, sitting in two chairs, like via ropes and stuff around their torsos and feet and hands. And Elsa walks over and she says, I'm sorry you had to come to this, Indy. Or no, she says, that's the thing. She says, I'm sorry it had to come to this. I just wanted to let you know that the time we spent together, it was wonderful. And like she's talking to Indy and she starts making out with him. But Sean Connery just assumes that he's like, yeah, she was quite wonderful for me as well. And he's like, what was? Oh. He sees that his son is making out with her. So she did not like the shriveled dick of Sean Connery. He's just sad. And she's like, this is how we say goodbye in Austria. And she just starts making out with him and licking that earlobe like no. She loves sucking on men's earlobes, chat. This woman's got an earlobe fetish, and she walks away. But then Colonel fucking Vogel, Ernest Vogel, he's like, and this is how we say goodbye in Germany, Dr. Jones. Bah! And he fucking backhands him. He hits him so hard that Indy knocks that back of the head of his father. And as they walk away, and he's like, I preferred the way they said goodbye in Austria. And and Sean Connery's like, yes, me too. But eventually, as they go outside, Walter Donovan, he gets in. But then Colonel Vogel comes over because he just got a message from Nazi high command, I guess, from Adolf Hitler himself, Chad. Good old A. Hitler. And Walter Donovan starts reading the message, and he's like, holy shit. As of right now, the Dr. Henry Jones and Indiana Jones are now enemies of the Reich, chat, and therefore must be disposed of. Germany just declared war on the Jones boys. Take care of them, Colonel. And Colonel's like, yeah, I love killing Americans. And so I was like, all right, there you go. And they also captured Marcus Burr. Like, wow, really, that was fucking fast. He's not a master of disguise at all. But we cut back to the room where Indy and Sean Connery are, and he's like, I reach in my pocket, Dad, behind me. It's my lucky trinket. And then fucking Sean Connery starts digging into Indy's pockets, and he pulls up. He's like, I shot a lighter. He's like, yeah, Dad. Use the lighter to burn the ropes off of us so we can escape. And he's like, smart, Junior, very smart. And he takes it, he lights it, Chad. He starts burning the ropes, and he burns his fucking hand. He's like, and he throws the lighter in front of him and starts like burning the rug a little bit. He's like, shit. And the whole fucking place starts going up. What is that stuff made of? They're all still covered in petroleum? I don't understand. And the whole place starts burning. And Indy's like, is everything going okay back there, Dad? And he's like, no. And they see the whole, he's like, oh, Dad, Jesus, Dad, we gotta move. He's like, okay, I'm moving with your shot. They're trying to get around. Eventually, the whole fucking place is just, the entire room is on fire at this point. And the Indy's like, Dad, he's like, what, Dad, what, Dad, what? He's like, move to the fireplace. The one place there's no fire, chat, because it's completely made of stone. The fire hasn't gotten there. And so they hobble all the way to the fireplace, and they just sit there. And Indy, he's just been working at it. He's breaking his goddamn wrist trying to get out of these bonds. He's like, okay, Dad, I'm almost out. And then he hits like this little lever on the fireplace, and it starts spinning around. And they're inside the Nazi like high command headquarters. Everyone's like listening to like, you know, all sorts of intel and stuff, and they spin all the way around at 360 degrees till they end up back where they are. And Sean Connery's like, our situation is not improved. He's like, God damn it, Dad, just help me get these off. And he gets all the bonds off eventually, but then he almost tries to, and it hits it again, and they spin around. And they're right in, they go only like halfway, and so they're right in the compound. And then this one lady who's working on something goes, and they're like, hi, how you doing? Hi. And she's like, alarm! And the alarm goes off, and all these Nazis start coming over. They're like, oh, shit. And they spin the thing around, and they take the bonds off. And then Indy, he just starts beating the shit out of these guards as they come through. And fucking Sean Connery's just like, Jesus Christ, I'm too old for this. But eventually, Indy defeats them both. And he locks all those guys inside the fiery room, and he takes a bust of Adolf Hitler and puts it in the mechanism so they can't run after them. And then him and Sean Connery, they take off. They're trying to look for an escape in the castle. They have nowhere to go. They don't know where the exits are. They seem to be blocked. And he's panicking at this point. And, you know, Sean Connery's like, you know what, usually when I can't think of a solution, I just shit down. And he sits down in this chair, and it activates another hidden switch, and this spiraling stone staircase, and he's like, ugh! And he falls down. He's like, Dad, I just shit down, the situation and the solution presents itself. And he gets up, and he goes down the stairs, and eventually, Colonel Vogel, he hears about the situation. The whole fucking castle's on fire. He's like, we must stop the Jones boys. And so Indy and Sean Connery, they come to like these boats that are all parked outside this little jetty. And he's like, this is intolerable, Junior. This is entirely intolerable. Here, take my bags. And he's like, no, Dad, take your own damn bag. He's like, we're going this way. And he's like, but what about the boat? Aren't we going to ride on the boat? And he's like, I love it how Sean Connery like really wanted to be in that boat in that scene. And so all the Nazis, but it was a little bit of bamboozlement at play, chat. Because the Nazis, they go in the boats because they think Indy and Sean Connery are in the boats. But then little did they know, boom, Indy bursts out of this fucking box which has a motorcycle with a sidecar. And him and his dad speed off. I mean, I would have probably, wait until they were out in the water at that point, but whatever. But they start speeding down. Indy fucking runs over some Nazi jabronis. And they fall in the water, chat. But now we get a really fucking cool motorcycle chase scene with Sean Connery, Indiana Jones. Tiberius Monk, thank you for the 100 Benny. Sir Juicy, hello to you, good sir. Hope you're having a very nice evening. We're currently at the scene where Indiana Jones and his father, Henry Jones Sr., are in a motorcycle being chased by some Nazis. And so they're going down this wooded path, chat. and they're being attacked by various Nazis, and he's just fucking bashing him on either side. Sean Connery using his bag, and he's bashing him too. Father and son working together, Chad. It's so good. Some Nazis just fucking crash and everything. One guy's like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna circle around. I'm gonna take a shortcut, and I'm gonna circle around. I'm gonna blast them that way. Eventually, Indy comes to this checkpoint. He just bursts right through, but he's confronted with the Nazi who's coming right down. He's getting his machine gun out, and fucking Indy's like, shit. And he grabs this banister, this wooden banister that's on the side of the road, and he's jousting, and Sean Connery's like, yes, son, yes, just like in medieval times. He's very excited about it. And then as soon as the Nazi's about to fire, he goes, and he just punches him. He spears him, chat, right through the gut, and the guy's like, and he's dead. He's definitely dead, chat. But as they're continuing to go, another Nazi rolls up right next to him, and Indy has like the broken part of the banister of his little jousting stick, and he just shoves it into the wheel of the guy. He goes, and he just flips over. He just smacks his head explodes everywhere, chat, and they ride off, and he's just like, he's just laughing. He looks at his dad, and his dad's like, yes, I didn't like that. It was too violent. He just didn't care for it. He's like so dismissive, and he's like, so fucking sad. Jesus Christ. Eventually they park. They come to this path where it's like, all right, one destination is where they have to go to get Marcus and Saul. The other one is right to Berlin. And at this point, he's like, Dad, Jesus Christ, we got to get to Marcus, but we got to get the diary too. And the dad's like, yes, we do. We have to get to Berlin to get my diary. You need to know the path. And he's like, well, Dad, you wrote down all this stuff, so you already know it, right? You already know everything we need to do. He's like, yes, indeed, yes, all the 3 tasks that one must accomplish in order to get the Holy Grail. He's like, yeah, Dad, what are the tasks? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? What are you talking about? He's like, I wrote them down so I wouldn't have to remember. And Indy's like, Jesus Christ. And then Sean Connery just reels back and slaps him in the face. Never use God's name in vain, son. It's terrible. He's like, all right, I guess we're going to Berlin. And then, chat, we cut to Berlin. And they're having a good old book burning. Those fucking Germans, Chad, those Nazi sons of bees, they loved a good old-fashioned book burning because there's this massive pile of books. All these kids are eating all the books, Chad. They don't give a shit. Big old Nazi parade. You got Adolf Hitler doing, yes, very nice, burn the books. Yes, it must be hot there. And then Indy, he apparently just knocked the shit out of a Nazi guy, Chad, and he put on his uniform and everything. And eventually he goes and confronts Elsa, who's also at the book, who's very sad about all the books. Hey, these are the people you're working for, honey. These are the fucking people you're working for, honey. And she's like, I'm sad that you're burning all of the books. Now, how about you don't work for a fucking Nazi, you asshole? But eventually Indy confronts her and just grabs her by the throat. He's like, where's the diary, Elsa? And she's like, it's right here. And he takes it between her bosom. And he's like, ooh. And she's like, Indy, I'm sorry. He's like, don't you fucking dare. You work for Nazis. All I have to do is squeeze. And all I have to do is scream. But he takes the book. He's like, get out of my life, you Nazi bitch. And he goes back to his dad. And Sean Connery's just looking at all this disgust, and he's like, Sean, we're pilgrims in an unholy land. Let's get the fuck out of here. And so they're trying to get out of there, but all these little Nazi youths are like, ooh, we love Adolf Hitler so much. And so they start pushing Indy and his dad into the front of the parade. And who's in the front of the parade, chat? Adolf Hitler, chat. Adolf F. Hitler himself. And so Indy, he turns around, he's confronted with Adolf Hitler. He's like, oh, and Hitler's like looks at him and he sees the diary and he takes the diary and he opens it up and he just writes his name in English, which is weird. And he gives the book back to Indy and he walks away. You could have stabbed him and he could have gone, little stabberino. But now that's for another time, Chad. That's not Indy's fight. His fight right now is for the Holy Grail. So at this point, they're like, we got to get the fuck out of Germany at this point. And so it's like, hey, what is the best way to get out of Germany? Zeppelins. Everyone loves Zeppelins in Germany, Chad. They learn nothing from the Hindenburg. However, Indy goes there. He picks some tickets. Sean Connery's like, what did you get for us, Sean? He's like, I got the only thing we could get, which is Zeppelin. He's like, shit. That fucking sucks. And so They go ahead and they board the Zeppelin and they sit down. And Sean Connery, he's relaxing. He's like, yes, Sean, we're almost out of here. This is fantastic. He's like, oh, well, let's wait a minute, Dad. We're not sure. I'll be more comfortable. Oh, no, that's the thing. And he's like, see, Dad, I told you we'd be able to get out of here. No problem. He's like, tell me that when we're in the air. How about that, Junior? You're always thinking too fast. Always too ahead of yourself. That's your problem. And then he looks over and he sees Colonel fucking Vogel with, oh God, Pat Roach, who has been all the Indiana Jones movies, chat. Pat Roach played the big bald Nazi initially in Raiders. He was that guy who then gets cut up by the propeller. He also plays the thuggy cult member in Brownface who gets squished by the big rolling pin. Here he's just, I don't know, a ticket guy. And so Pat Roach is escorting Colonel Vogel onto the blimp, and Indy's like, fuck. And so Indy gets up and he starts talking with the waiters, and he just like, does this smell like chloroform? He knocks him out, and he puts on his suit. Meanwhile, Colonel Vogel, he gets on the goddamn blimp and he starts, that are your papers. That are your, like he's looking for people at this point. And he's being very rude, where he has this goddamn Nazi on a whip or something, or like, this thing they beat people with, like this billy club, and he's constantly pushing down people's papers. He's like, just be an asshole, chat. And eventually he gets to Dr. Jones. He's like, hello, Dr. Jones. Welcome to Germany. But then Indy comes up behind him, and he's like, tickets, please. And he's like, I'm sure the Führer will want to talk to you. And he's like, tickets, please. And he turns about. He's like, what tickets? He's like, oh, it's Indy. And he just goes, bah! And he punches him in the face, grabs him by the ass, ooh, and he flips him off the blimp, chat. He goes, into all the luggage. Everyone's like, holy shit. And he turns around, looks at everybody, and goes, no ticket. And everyone's like, oh, we have tickets. We have tickets, which is so funny. Love that line. But eventually they get up in the air, and Colonel Vogel is like, Scheiße, and German swears. But then they're in the air. Indy, he changes back. I guess, that he killed that German waiter. I don't know what he did with that guy, but he's probably most likely dead, or he threw him off the blimp too. And, Sean Connery's helping himself to a nice little whiskey. He's going over they got the diary bags, going over the diary. And he sits down. He's got a nice little whiskey, too. And he's like, Dad, this is kind of like the first time where we've ever really sat across from each other, where we haven't been, like, arguing. And he's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And he's like, well, Dad, we haven't spoken to each other in years, okay? And, like, the first time when we come in contact with each other, you're captured by Nazis, and I slept with your sloppy seconds. He's like, that sounds like a you problem right there. He's like, Dad, you're gaslighting me. And he's like, you made the choice, Junior. You made the choice years ago to leave years ago. You could have gotten in contact with me any time. And it's like, well, what about when Mom died? What about when Mom died? You didn't spend any time with me like the other kids' dads all the time. Why didn't you do that? He's like, because I respected you. I valued your privacy. I let you make your own decisions. I didn't tell you to go to bed. I didn't tell you to brush your teeth. I made sure that you are ready for whatever might come in the future. He's like, no, you didn't, Dad. You didn't. I had to teach myself all these things. You were never there for me or for Mom. And he's like, don't bring that up, Junior. I didn't know about her illness until it was too late. And by that time, son, you're such a fucking pussy. It's like, oh, God damn it. It's like, fuck you, Dad. And as soon as this is happening, they're arguing, going back and forth. The blimp starts moving. It starts turning around. And, Sean Connery's like, what's going on, Junior? And it's like, we're turning around, Dad. We got to get the fuck out of here. And so somehow they sneak into the underbelly of the blimp. And they have a spare biplane underneath the blimp, chat, for you never know. For me, the best part is he chose part. Oh, it's a great line. Well, we're getting to that very soon. They have a spare biplane in there, and Indy, he gets in the cockpit, and Sean Connery's like, Sean, have you ever flown a plane before? He goes, yeah, I've flown a plane before, but I've never landed one. He's like, what do you mean? And by the time he says that, they already launched the plane. And they start flying to their destination. But the goddamn Nazi Air Force is after them, chat. The Luftwaffe, the good old waffles. The waffles are after them, chat. They have a couple planes coming their way. It's like, oh, this ain't fucking good. And it's like, Dad, you got to use the turret. You got to use the turret to shoot at them. He's like, I've never used this before. It's like, just do it, Dad, fuck. And so Sean Connery gets in this turret and goes, and starts shooting at these Luftwaffe planes, chat. But then as Sean Connery's firing, he accidentally hits the tail of the airplane. It just destroys it. And he's like, oh, shit. And Sean Connery's like, fuck me. Sean. And he's like, Dad, did they hit us, Dad? And he's like, I'm sorry to say, son, they got us. You liar. You goddamn liar. And so the plane starts going down. And eventually it just goes boom. It fucking crashes shit. It fucking lands it, but it's more of a crash than a landing, if you will. But they get out, and they pass by like this poor fucking old man who is just trying to, put his car back together. He's just trying to put his car back together, chat. And, he's putting his hubcap on. He's seeing this fucking fight between Indiana Jones and the Luftwaffles and shit. And right before he's about to put the hubcap on, the car just drives away. And he's like, boppity boopy. They're somewhere in Greece or something. And Indy's in the front of the car with Sean Connery, and they're being chased by these two planes, basically. And they're driving the whole time, and eventually they're coming up to, like, a tunnel, and they go in the tunnel, and the fucking Nazi's like, I don't give a shit, I ain't scared of tunnels, and this guy goes, boom, right into the tunnel, and his wings just burst off, and he's like, right there next to Indiana Jones and Sean Connery, and they look at him, and he looks at them as he goes, it's a great fucking scene, as he goes all the way out the tunnel, because he has more momentum, and he goes, he explodes once he exits. But then Sean Connery and you're like, it's just so exciting. We got him, Sean. We got him, yes. But then, we see a Nazi drop a bomb and then boom, creates this massive fucking pothole, and the car goes right into there and they crash, which I'm like, that would have definitely caused them to just shoot through the windshield, but whatever, Chad, it's a movie. And so they both get out. It's like, Dad, yeah, we gotta get out of here. He's like, okay, shut, I'm coming. And so they go down, they get onto this beach, and where the plane is coming around at this point, chat. And Indy, he's like, oh shit, I got nowhere else to go. We're right here, open. He gets his gun out. Oh, the bullets are gone. He's like, fuck. At this point, Sean Connery, he notices like a shit ton of seagulls on the beach. And he's like, I have an idea. And he takes his, he has an umbrella with him. He has an umbrella. He always has his briefcase and his little hat. And he has this umbrella. He starts going, and he starts scaring all the seagulls. All the seagulls fly up in the sky, and they all hit. And this happens, chat. Like seagulls and birds and shit, they hit planes and they can bring them down. And all the seagulls start pelting the Nazis, like, as all the seagulls start like penetrating his body, and the plane just careens into the fucking side of the mountain chain and explodes. And then Sean Connery, he's got, this is him as James Bond, where he's just fucking walking like this. Suddenly occurred to me, I remembered my Charlemagne. I will make weapons and allies of the rocks and the trees and the birds in the sky. And this is the first time where Indy like really looks at his dad and is like, wow. Like he smiles and he laughs because he can't believe what his dad just did. What his dad just did was so fucking cool. And it's a great scene. Yes. Thank you, MZ, for the 300 biddies, chat. Like I said, favorite movie, and got this whole thing memorized from scenes. Vanny knows, he got the lines. Let my army be the rocks and the trees and the birds in the sky. It's great. No, it's a wonderful scene, and it really deepens the relationship between Indy and Sean Connery's character of Henry Jones. Eventually, and again, thank you, MZ, for 300 biddies, chat. Hope you guys are enjoying the review. At this point, though, chat, let's see. Where are we now? Trying to remember. And Luke the Boss, thank you for the 10 minutes. Wow, my dad is James Bond. He's James Bond, chat. It's fucking cool. It's awesome. Oh, okay, here we go. So eventually, Indy and Sean Connery, they get to the Empire of Hatay, and they meet with Saul, and he's like, Indy, my friend. Indy's dad, my friend. And he's like, Saul, what happened to Marcus? I'm sorry, Indy. He was captured by the Nazis. He's like, God damn it, we should have known. And, Sean Connery's like, I told you we shouldn't have shunned him that way. He get lost in his own... That's a great line before. When Sean Connery... I forgot about this early in the movie. When they're all tied up in the chairs, Sean Connery's like, is all that true what you said about Marcus? He's like, no. He got lost in his own museum. He's like, fuck. Which is not good. But Saul is just like apologizing to them. He's like, India, I have some more bad news. And he's like, what is it, Salah? And we cut. And the Nazis are appealing to the leader of the Hatay Empire, Chad, asking, because they're not going to invade, they want to start a war, but they're asking for permission to go through the Crescent Valley and also for any weapons. And they're like, hey, we have appropriate, and they're bribing him basically with all this gold from all of these Jewish people they've murdered. And it's like, you would like all this, gold and jewels and valuables, and the leader of the Hatay Empire is like, I don't give a shit about all that. But he does catch his eyes, he just ignores it, and he sees a car, and he starts describing the car. He's like, this car, I can jerk off to this car, okay? I will give you weapons. I will give you mountain horsemen, automatic weapons, single shot weapons, and most importantly, tanks. And he's like, the Nazi Empire, thanks you. He's like, goddamn right you do. Excuse me, I'm gonna go jerk off in this beautiful black car. And that's what he does, chap. Eventually, though, we come from that and we see also Kazim's there. Kazim, he's infiltrated the Empire of Hatay, chat, and he's there and he's watching this. He's like, oh shit, I gotta get my fezzes on this too. But after that, we cut to the desert where Sala and Marcus Sala, Indy, and Sean Connery, they're driving out there. They caught up with the expedition that the Nazis have. They have they get one tank, and it says World War I tank right there, and they're driving through it. And Sala's like, I don't know about this, Indy. This is kind of rough. And Sean Connery's like, you think they might see us here? Son, get down. They're going to see you. And Indy's like, there's no way they're going to see us from here. We're fine, Dad. And then, boom, the tank shoots at him. He's like, shit. And he takes cover. And he's like, you think they saw us? And then they hear another shot, and then Sala's car blows up. And Sala's like, oh, no, that's my brother-in-law's car. Oh, God, he's going to be so mad at me. Like, this isn't good. And then he's like, all right, listen, Dad, you stay here. Sala, we're going to get some horses. We'll be able to bamboozle them. He's like, camels, Indy. Camels. Like, no, Sala, I don't want any. None of the camels. I need horses, but camels. He's like, no. And I'm going to go get me some stuff, and we're going to bamboozle them. We're going to get Marcus out of there, and then we're going to leave. We got to get out. She's like, but what about the Holy Grail, son? We have to make sure the Nazis don't get it. We'll think about that later, Dad. And so Indy, he goes ahead and he wrangles up some horses. He steals some. Oh, that's the thing. Because when they're all they're distracted at this point because the Royal Order, the Holy Order of the Fez, has attacked. Chat. They have attacked the Nazis. And Walter Donovan, he's like, that's Jones, all right. He loves fezzes. He loves hats. And the Nazis have to take cover as they're shooting at the Holy Order. Meanwhile, Indy, he grabs himself a whole bunch of horses, and Sala, he gets a whole bunch of camels. And he's like, I told you, Sala, no camels. He's like, Indy, I have to give these to my brother-in-law to make up for the loss of his car. Also, your father snuck off. He said, what do you mean my father snuck off? And so we cut back to the Nazis who have completely killed all of the Royal Holy Order of the Fez. And like Walter Donovan and Elsa, and they walk up to good old Kazim, Chad. He's all of his intestines are hanging out of his tum-tum. And he's like, you'll never have the Holy Grail, you Nazi pieces of shit. And he dies. And they're like, whatever. And Elsa's like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. He's like, you're not sorry, honey. And so eventually we cut to the tank where Mark is just sitting there all sad. But then who comes through the top of the tank? Fucking Henry. Goddamn Sean Connery taps and Marcus is like, ah. And they do this kind of like bro handshake fist, 1938 style chat. It's pretty slick. And he's like, well, Sean Connery, why are you here? And he's like, I'm with Indy. I'm with Sean. Let's get you out of here. Let's go. But oh, shit, because all the other Nazis start pounding the tank, and who comes in? Last chat, Colonel fucking Ernest Vogel. And he's like, Dr. Jones, so good to see you. That is the diet. And he starts, like, slapping him shit with his glove. And then, like, he keeps doing it, asking him questions. And eventually, he's about to do it again, but Sean Connery grabs his fucking wrist, and he says, if more of you goose-stepping morons would read books instead of burning them, you wouldn't have this fucking problem. And he's right. He's right, Chad. He's like, good point. But then, Indy, they do spot Indy who's like, I gotta save my goddamn dad at this point. So Indy has to take on all this entire Nazi regiment, Chad. But he's got to do it. He's got to do it Indiana Jones style. He has to make use of the rocks and the trees and the environment to his advantage. That's what he does. But he has to also get rid of this tank, too. And so at this point, we have all these guys like on the sides of the tank with these like, they're firing these shells at him. And as they're trying to reload one shell, Indy grabs this big rock, which is called a fuck you rock, and he puts it in the barrel and it goes, fuck you. And when the guy shoots it, it bursts back and explodes his head and covers poor Marcus and Sean Connery and Ernest Vogel in just meat. And Ernest Vogel has to open up the tank. He's like, because he's all covered in smoke and shit. Eventually, Indy, he jumps onto the tank at this point, and he starts battling like all these other Nazis from the sidecar that start jumping on. He starts hitting them, but he steals one of their guns and he shoots them, and the bullet goes through through all three Nazis, and they all fall down. He's like, Jesus, those Lugers, chat. Say what you will about the Nazis, but they did make a goddamn good gun. So shot him, tummies just explode, and then this one truck. Oh yeah, at one point, because Indy, he had this one truck coming from this way, and the tank's going this way. It's like right at each other, and he just goes to the left, and the tank rams right in the truck and pincers it with its barrel. And Colonel Vogel's like, yeah, kill those guys, fuck them, and they blast off that truck and they roll over it. It's pretty cool. Eventually, though, Indy is fighting Colonel Vogel on top of the car, but because it's moving around so much and everything, Indy, he flips over the side at one point, and he's caught on this one part of the tank, like, I don't know, like his satchel is, and he can't get out. And Colonel Vogel just grabs a shovel and just goes, he starts hitting with a shovel. I mean, notices as they're coming up to it, like the side of this, I guess, hill or whatever. It's going to come to a point where if they keep going, Indy's going to smash into it and just explode. So Colonel Vogel's like, just go more into the side of this hill right here. And the crazy driver is like, and he does just that. Now, meanwhile, at this point, Sean Connery's like, I've had enough of all this bullshit. He's sick of it, Chad. He's sick of it. And, during the battle, this guy operating a Nazi periscope, he gets hit in the fucking head and he falls over dead. Sean Connery, he grabs a gun, but then he's fighting with this one Nazi who has the gun at this point, but the Nazi takes it, and he's he grabs Sean Connery, he's about to shoot him. He's like, yes. But Sean Connery, he gets a fountain pen, and he just squirts it and stabs the guy in the eye with the pen. He's like, oh, and then he fires the gun, and the bullet starts bouncing around, beep, 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 and then boom, it just hits the driver of the tank, and he falls over dead at that point, chat. And Marcus is like, holy shit, Sean Connery, the pen is indeed mightier than the sword. It's true. It's very true. But at this point, Indy, the tank finally moves away. Indy manages to climb back up, and he continues to fight Colonel Vogel, chat. Then Marcus gets on top along with Sean Connery, and Marcus is like, how do we get off this infernal machine? And Colonel Vogel accidentally hits poor fucking Marcus of his elbow when he winds up a punch to hit Indy, and he just falls off the back of the fucking tank. He's fine, though, Chad. He's fine. But then Colonel Vogel, he pushes over Indy's dad, and he starts he's on the treads of the tank. He's like, like his ass, chat. Sean Connery's thick Scottish ass is just being ripped open and ripped apart by these treads. And then Sala, he starts running up on a horse. He's like, Indy, I'm here, my friend. And he's like, grab my dad, Sala. He's like, Indy's dad, come with me. And he grabs Sean Connery as they ride off, chat. But then Indy and Vogel, they keep punching the shit out of each other at one point, but they're coming to a cliff. And they're so close to it, and he's like, oh shit. And he punches Vogel, and he pushes him inside the tank right as the tank careens over the cliff. And we cut to the tank, and Colonel Vogel going, oh! And then boom, and it explodes, and he gets crushed by all sorts of debris, chat. But then all the group runs up, and they're like, Indy, and they're like, Dr. Jones, he's like, son, and oh no, he's dead. And everyone's so sad. And Sean Connery's like, it can't be true. No, not my son. I just needed a few moments to tell him. That's all I needed, to tell him what I needed to say. Oh, God. And everyone's like so sad. And then Indy, we see he's crawling up the top of the cliff until he gets over there like, and he waddles over to them, and he's like, yeah. Like exhausted. And they all start looking at him. And then Shaka was like, oh, my boy, Junior, I thought I lost you, boy. Oh, and then he's for the first time he's getting hugged by his father. And he's like, oh, and he's like, all right, well, that's enough of that. He fucking pushes him down. And he's like, let's go, my son. Let's go to the Holy Grail. We can't let those goddamn Nazi fucks take it. He's like, oh, God. He's just sitting there cross-legged. And his hat's like, here's your hat, buddy. The wind just blows his hat to him. He takes it. Eventually, they go down the path of the crescent moon, chat, until they open up into this large canyon, which where this looks like a temple built into the rock itself. And they go inside the temple, chat, and they see Walter, Donovan, Elsa, and the rest of the troops that they still have with them, chat. And they're like, well, we need to sacrifice a couple of brown people. And so they get this one guy who apparently is one of the leader of Hattay's men. And they send him in there, chat. He's like, oh. And he's passing by like all these cobwebs and shit. It's just thick with cobwebs. But then he looks to his left, and he sees this body, and where the head should be, or where the butt is this guy's head right on top of his ass, and he's like, "Oh God!" And he keeps walking, chat, until eventually the cobwebs begin to move, and we see these what look like blades shoot out, and then we cut to the entrance of the tomb, and the guy's head just goes, just rolls out. It's like, oh shit. Walter Donovan's like, let's send another brown person in there. It's like, oh no. But eventually, Indy's like, okay, listen, we're gonna sneak up on him right now, okay? Sal, you go over there. Dad, you go over there. Marcus is like, Indy, they got us. Like that, the Nazis are right there, and they're like, ah, shit. And so they continue. They bring him out into the open, and Walter Donovan's like, Dr. Jones and Dr. Henry Jones Sr., so good to have you join us. Is like, you won't be able to use me to get the Grail, Donovan. I rather die. And he's like, yes, you rather die, but what about your papa? And he shoots Sean Connery in the bosom. And then he's like, no. He shoots him right near the nip, chap. And he falls over, and he's like, you gotta go get me that Holy Grail, or your dad's gonna die. He's like, Junior, he shot me in the boob. He's like, don't worry, Dad. Don't worry, I'll get the Grail for you, Donovan. And he takes the diary at this point, and he goes ahead and he walks up there. And Sal's like, Indy, be careful, my friend, be careful. But he walks up there, and he starts reading the entry about the first task, chat, the first test, if you will. And it's the test of the penitent man. The penitent man must be penitent before God. And he's seeing all the dead bodies everywhere. The penitent man. He has to be penitent before God. What does that mean? And then all the cobwebs begin to move. And Sean Connery's like, the penitent man, my son, you must show respect to God. He's like, the penitent man must kneel. And then he fucking kneels as his blade shoots down, Chad. Apparently, you got to be penitent to God. You got to do a somersault. And so he does a little somersault, Chad, forward, Chad, as his blade would have gotten right in the peen region, Chad, right there in the peen. The breath of God. Watch Holly, good to see you. And the chat attack, witness me. Thank you so much for the very kind raid, Mr. Diaz. I hope you're doing very well today, sir. Thank you. The man is humble before God. And so he passed the first test, Chad. Woo-wee! He got it, Chad. He hooks up some of the gear so the blades stop moving so they won't get you on the dick or the vagine or cut off your head, so you're good, you're solid. And so then he goes on to the next test, Chad, the alphabet test, and where he has to spell out the Hebrew name of God, Chad. Hosea in the highest, baby. Hosea in the highest. But then, Connery's like, it's the alphabet test, it's the alphabet. And he's like, it's fine, Indy's dad, it's fine. He's like, no, he doesn't understand. Hosea in ancient Hebrew, it's spelled with an I. It starts with an I, not a J. And then he's like, all right, first letter J. And he fucking steps right through. He's like, ah! And he grabs on the ledge. He's like, oh, Jesus. And he pulls himself up. He's like, idiot. Fucking ancient Hebrew, Hosea begins with an I. And so he gets up there. And he starts spelling out Hosea. Chad does the whole thing. Almost tips over at one point, but he gets over the other side. Boom! Task number 2 down. Only one. Well, The third one more to go. And so then he comes, chat, to just this sheer fucking drop. This sheer fucking drop. And this, you gotta have faith, chat. You gotta have faith in God. You gotta have faith in God, chat. You gotta believe, even if their path before you doesn't even exist. Even if it's just a sheer fucking drop into an abyss. And then he's like, oh, Jesus. Oh, God, I don't know if I can do this. And Sean Connery's like, oh, my nipple. Son, you need to believe, son. You have to do it. Oh, nipple pain. And he's like, I got to stop the nipple pain for Dad. And so he's like, I got to believe in God. He's like, I love that Indy's like, yeah, I don't know if God's real at this point, even though he discovered the Ark of the Covenant, which literally used the power of God itself to explode and melt a whole bunch of Nazis. And he encountered another god, Kalima shot today, which gave a voodoo priest the powers to rip people's hearts out. But he's like, I don't know about this whole god thing, whatever. So he's like, all right, it's a sheer drop or whatever. Gotta have faith. Gotta have faith, Indy. And so he takes one step and boom, he hits solid ground. He's like, what? And it's an illusion, chat. It's an illusion. It's a death perception where he looks down and what it is, the path was always there. It just matches the rock face, so it perfectly blends in. He's like, oh, cool. And so he gets over there, chat, clambers over, and he takes a whole bunch of sand and he scatters it on the rock face so people can see it a little bit easier. But eventually, he comes into this big ornate room. Actually, it's not really ornate room, but it's a seemingly ordinary room, but on the far side, it's covered and littered in all of these beautiful-looking cups ordained with jewels and gold. And right in the middle of the room, it looks like there's an old man, chat, adorned in medieval armor. And then Indy's like, hi? And the guy's like, ah! And he like, he turns around, and he has this sword. He's like, ah! He tries to swing it, but he just falls backwards. And he's like, are you okay? And he takes the guy, he's like, I've been here for so long protecting the Grail. He's like, you're the original knight. You're the original knight in the story. He goes, yep, that's me. One of three brothers, the only two remain. And now my time has come. You may relieve me of my duty and execute me with honor. He's like, I'm not going to execute you, dude. I'm not here for that. Okay, listen, there's a lot of crazy shit going on. I don't have time to explain. And then who walks in? Walter fucking Donovan and goddamn Elsa. And she walks in, and they got guns, and he's like, what's that? He's like, I can't explain guns or gunpowder to you. It would take way too much time. But I will say, the knight is like, all right, he's like, okay, these guys seem like a little shitty to me. Here he has that feeling. Here's that feeling. And Walter O'Donovan's like, well, what is this? Where's the cup? Where's the cup? Where's the fucking cup, knight? And he's like, yeah, you must choose. You must choose the Holy Grail. But he's like, I don't know nothing about no Bible book stuff. I don't know what it is. And Elsa's like, I will choose for you, Walter. And he's like, thank you. I trust you implicitly, Dr. Schneider. She's like, yeah, I know. And she just picks the first cup that's in arm's reach. She's like, it's this one. He's like, ooh. I would be like, wait a minute, you reach for that really quickly. How do you know it's that one? She's like, here, it's this. And he's like, excellent, cool. All right, excellent. Oh, this is great. This is great. I can't wait to drink from this. I'll be drinking my youth for all of eternity, Dr. Jones. You'll see. And he goes over to the water, and the knight's just like, ooh. He scoops up some water, chat, glug, glug, glug. Ah. And then he's just like, oh, he gets the worst case of bubbly guts you've ever seen, chat. Just shitting and vomiting all over himself. He's like, what's happening to me? And he's all aging fast, and he grabs into Elsa, and his hair starts growing, and his eyeballs, like, they dry up, and he's like, and he becomes like a zombie skeleton until he's like, and then he comes over and he just pushes the guy off Elsa, and he hits the back of the wall, turns to dust, and the only thing that remains, Chad, is his Nazi ring. Evil son of a bitch. And at this point, they turn the knight, and he goes, he chose poorly. Which I fucking love. Yeah, to eternal life. And well, to eternal death in that case. And then he's like, It's the cup of the carpenter. It's the cup of the carpenter of a humble man. And he goes for the shittiest cup there, Chad. He picks up the shitty. It's literally covered in shit. It just looks like you wouldn't drink out of it, Chad. That's why you wouldn't drink it. That's why you end up like fucking Walter goddamn Donovan. And he grabs the cup. He goes over to the fountain, gives him a good old scoop, chugs that shit. And he's good. No bubbly guts, no tummy rumbles. And the knight's like, you have chosen wisely. And he's like, cool. And he takes some more water, and him and Elsa, they go all the way back to the temple, goes to his dad, and has his dad drink some of that shit, and he pours it on his nipple bullet wound. The nipple is gone. Like, the Holy Grail water did not save Sean Connery's nipple, but it did destroy the bullet and the wound. And so he's good. At this point, all of the troops from Hatay, the Nazis, are like, fuck this. We're just going to get out of here. This is crazy. They just leave at this point. And Indy helps, Sean Connery up. But Elsa, she's getting greedy. And she just picks up. Oh, that's the thing. The night before they left, he said, you must not take the cup past the seal of the temple. That is the cost of immortality. You can, so that's a monkey's paw situation. So you can be immortal, but you can never leave here. So if I was here, I'd just like, all right, we're gonna set up like a nice TV. We're gonna put in some fucking windows here, Chad. We're gonna get some dehumidifiers, some air conditioners. We're gonna make this place work. But for now, it's like, you're fucked. Like, yeah, you want to be immortal? You're gonna be like me forever. That's what you got to do. He's like, and if you take the Grail past the seal, then everything will be destroyed. The entire temple will fall in itself, and the Grail will be lost forever. Elsa's like, I don't give a shit. And she takes the Grail, and she's like, we've got it, Indy, we've got it. She's walking across the seal. And he's like, Elsa, didn't you listen to the knight? He said never to walk across the seal. The temple will be destroyed. And, of course, her big, dumb feet walk across the seal, Chad, and the whole thing starts coming down. Everything starts falling apart. People have fallen through crevasses and shit. And at one point, the cup... she's like, she falls over, and the cup, it rolls down this little hill until it's right on the side of this wall. Remember, and it's right over a precipice, Chet, into the abyss. And now she's like, and she falls in, and Indy just slides after her and grabs her at the last minute. And he's like, Elsa, she's like, Indy, I can get it, Indy, I can get it. He's like, Elsa, let it go, let it go. Here I stand in the light of day. Let the storm rage on. And fucking, does Elsa let it go? No. She's like, I can get it. He's like, you're slipping, honey, you're slipping. Your Nazi leather gloves, they look cool, but you're slipping. You're too sweaty. And she slips right out. She goes, Arr! And she falls into the abyss and most likely dies a horrible fucking death. But Indy, he careens in too, and fucking Sean Connery, he reaches out for him. He's like, Junior. He's like, I almost got it, Dad. He's going for it too. And then fucking Sean Connery said, the big mo in the movie says, Indiana. And fucking Indy's like, oh, Dad. He's like, let it go, let it go. The storm rages on. Let it go, let it go. You're singing Frozen, Dad. I know, I love that movie. And so he decides to let it go, son. Let it go. And so that's what he does. He pulls the son up. And the Grail falls into the abyss as well. And Sala and Marcus and Indy and Sean Connery, they all run out. But before they go, the knight's like, bye, thanks for fucking up my goddamn house. As he's crushed by debris. They all run out of there. And, Sean Connery's looking sad. And Indy's like, Dad, I'm sorry. He's like, nah, Sean, this was enough. This was enough. Thank you. And it's like, oh, thanks. And they all get up on the horses and everything. And then Sala's like, I have a question, Indy and Indy's dad. Because that's the thing. Because Sean Connery keeps calling him Junior. We have to ride out of the canyon, and we got to get the first plane back to America. I want to get the fuck out of here. And Sala's like, why, Indy's dad, why do you call Indy Junior? What is this Junior? And he's like, that's his name, Junior. He's like, Dad, please don't tell him. He's like, his name is Henry Jones Jr. I'm senior. And he's like, why have I called you Indy? He's like, the dog's name was Indiana. And he's like, you're named after a dog? He's like, I love that dog, Sala. I fucking love that dog. And he just starts laughing. And Marcus Brody's like, I know the way, everyone. Follow me. And he fucking rides off. He's almost falling off the horse. And is like, let's go chase after him before he gets lost in his museum. Bum, ba-da-dum, bum, 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 ba-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-bum, ba, bum, ba, 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 ba. As they ride out into the sunset, chat, the Crusaders, the last crusade indeed, chat. And that, my friends, is my scene by scene by scene by scene breakdown for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And they arrived in the sunset. Alice never really believed in the Grail. She thought she found a prize. That's what it is. That's the line. Fuck her. Fuck that bitch. And this was, sadly, this is the last Indiana Jones movie ever made, chat. The last one. This is the final chapter in the trilogy. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, my lordy. Woo! That was a long one, too, chat. That was a long. I knew it would be a long one. But now, my friends, I'm going to take a quick break. Thank you, Alex Bernal. Thank you so much. Thank you, Holman. Holman, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. We had a lot of good people in here, chat. I think we saw Watch Holly in here for a bit. She stopped by. Hope you're doing well, Holly. So I was in the middle of a review. I'm concentrating when I'm doing my reviews. Oh, my Lord. But an absolute pleasure. Alien planted false memories and so forth. Exactly. We were probed. We were probed horrifically, and I did not like it. But now, chat, I'm going to take a quick break.